Hi folks, welcome to We the People. I'm Dave Gallus, your host, and today is a very special day for me. When I was growing up in Philadelphia, in the Northeast Philly, in the blue-collar neighborhood, everybody, all the kids had a plastic 6-gun on their hip and a 30-30 Winchester, Mattel Winchester, and our heroes were cowboys. And I grew up with Roy Rogers, John Wayne, and people that I really admired. They were tough men, good men, and supported by good women. So today I have a special guest. I have the cowboy for Trump, Couy Giffin. Couy,
thank you, Dave.
Welcome.
What an introduction.
No, man.
I have to agree with you on my side. I did the same thing. You know, I look up for the image of the cowboy, and in my opinion, has always been somebody of integrity, strength.
Absolutely.
Do the right thing, and you know, I grew up following my dad and my uncles and my grandfather, and I'm proud of my lineage, and yeah, it's just a good time to be in the fight.
I remember meeting up with you over at the county building at the county commission.
That's right.
And you were riding a horse there, and it's like, wow, that is great.
Yeah. You know, with the Cowboys for Trump deal, you know, when you bring the horses to town and you gather all the Cowboys horseback and you have it builds a lot of momentum, and
Sure.
people, you know, people love animals. They love horses, and horses are such a great instrument, tool, whatever you want to call them, to use whenever you're trying to meet somebody or you're trying to talk to somebody, because everybody loves a horse. When they pet on the horse, their walls come down a little bit, and you can talk to them about the things that matter and the things of truth, not the things that they necessarily see in mainstream media and the agenda-driven left feeds them, you know.
Sure, and I heard that they use horses in actually rehabbing vets that come back.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's any animal,
horse is a great animal.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about horses. I got a little bit of training and know what not to do, but I'm learning. So you have been involved in politics for how many years?
That's
and
correct.
You started out, I think, as county commissioner in Otero.
And in offices that I still hold. I'm still currently elected county commissioner in Otero County. I ran in 18. I began my term in 2019, and what a ride it's been, Dave. You know, I mean, God's allowed me to work in a lot of different areas. As I shared with you earlier, I served in the ministry for years. Pastored a church for years. Before that, I was in the show business. I lived in Paris, France for about 5 years.
Wow.
I worked in a remake of the Buffalo Bills Wild West show where there was
right?
trick roping, trick riding. I drove stagecoaches, chuck wagons, just great show. But I mentioned the different, and I've owned small business, you know, so I mentioned the different realms in which God has had me that I've served in. But the political realm, unfortunately, is the ickiest, murkiest, darkest area that I've ever been, and it's been the most uncomfortable. You know, preaching is difficult. Preaching, you know, you get a lot of arrows that are slung at you, you know. Well, just in general, you know. I mean, in pastoring a church, there's many struggles in pastoring a church, but in politics, the attacks come at you where they're nonstop, and the harder you hold the line, the more you're going to get hit. You know, I mean, I mentioned to somebody the other day, I said, you know, that old saying, there's no good people in politics. Now being in politics for as long as I've been, I can understand why that rings so true. And the reason why is because when good people get in office, and if they hold a good line, I think they finally get attacked to where they just give up and quit. Yeah. Or they begin to go pad their own pockets and sell their soul to the devil, and then pretty soon you can't tell a Republican from a Democrat from an independent, because they're all in on the take, and they're all working together, you know.
You know, I hear sometimes about term limits, and I think I understand how people get frustrated, but then again, if you get a good man in there, you want to keep them, or a good woman.
Absolutely.
You want to keep them there. And,
absolutely.
If they're incorruptible, that's the thing.
That's
like
the
you
thing.
say, they can go to the dark side. So I ran for state senate here, and campaigning. I'd knock on doors, and people are saying, I'm fed up with the Republican Party. I said, I understand what you mean, but that's why I'm running.
Amen.
It's like, you know.
And that's why we need others like you. That's why the the ground level is so critical, whether it be the county, the village, your city councilors.
Sure.
You know, that's where your county sheriff, that's where the rubber meets the road at.
Right.
You know, that's where the change is going to take place. Up to the election, I was really under the guise that we were going to win a landslide historic election with President Trump, which
me too.
But now with the way where we sit right now, instead of looking at the top and to get everything back from the top, I'm leaning more towards the bottom, and we need to start getting it back from the bottom. We need to start demanding that our county sheriffs protect our individual rights, our individual freedoms and liberties. And if they don't want to do that, then we constitutionally find them in violation of their oath. We remove them from office until we get a sheriff in there that will actually do his job and protect the people that he's sworn an oath to. And I'm not taking a shot at the sheriffs whenever I'm saying that. I love the sheriffs.
Well,
I work
Mace.
very closely with Tony Mace, Couy Helton, Robert Shepard, David Black. I've got a huge amount of respect for those men, and many others. I could go on and list probably about 29 of them in the state of New Mexico that I have respect for. Unfortunately, the sheriff of Doña County wouldn't make that list. But those men they're great patriots, and many times whenever we can be maybe critical, that can be viewed as being the wrong thing to do, or we shouldn't ever criticize. But I believe that political figures should always be criticized. Because it's not criticizing them, trying to run them down. It's critically wanting them to do better, and we should always. I mean, that's why America is who we are. We always strive to be better. And if I'm doing and if I'm doing something in my office where, you know, maybe I could pay a little bit more attention to something over here and take a harder stand over here, then I want my constituents telling me that, because that's the fight that my constituents want, and that's called representation. That's called representing the people, not representing your little elitist little social clubs that you have created and formed, and then you're pandering to all of the big people that donated to your campaign, and all the people that really matter are forgotten about, like we've been for so long, you know.
Right.
So.
Well, I go to city council meetings and county commission meetings. We just went to a school board meeting where they're trying to push what really turns out to be critical race theory, and it's like, listen, folks, these are your children. Don't you realize that your kids are going to be taught this kind of stuff, to hate somebody else because of their skin color?
Oh my gosh.
You know, but
it's probably, Obama is probably at the seed of that curriculum too, because right now where we stand as a nation and the politics of Joe Biden are nothing short of the politics of Barack Obama. Barack Obama is behind the scenes, and all of this racial division and all of this racial division and hatred, that's what Obama did for 8 years while he was in there. We're going back to the same muck we were in during Obama's era.
I was a Philly cop for 25 years, and I came on in '71 after the Watts riots in California, New York riots. They were rioting in Philadelphia, the Black Panthers were.
Sure.
But since that time, in '71, I saw when my son was born, I was 40 at the time, I saw a change. I saw our country actually not being prejudiced. Really, everybody was getting a fair shot. So when Barack Obama came up for election the first time, I thought, I am proud of my country for electing a black man. But he tore our country apart.
Oh, gosh,
he created division, and to me, that's the whole Democratic playbook. It's like create division. Guy against girl, homo against hetero,
and it's all
black
those
versus
devil white people, you know. I tell you, whenever I get called white, it always just irks me when somebody says, well, you're white. No, I'm not. My shirt is white. You know, my teeth are somewhat white. My socks are white. But my skin is not. Why? Because I'm an American. We're all mixed. My great grandmother was from Chihuahua, Mexico.
Okay.
You know? And I'm proud of my heritage from Chihuahua, Mexico. My granddad, who I hold in the very absolute highest regard, was half Mexican, and he was a enlisted man in the Air Force. He enlisted. Once he enlisted and got his 4-year degree, then he re-enlisted as an officer.
Wow.
And he worked his way up, and whenever my granddad retired, he was a full bird colonel in the United States Air Force.
Whoa.
Success story, any way you want to look at it. And,
right.
and my granddad was half Mexican. You think I'm racist because I'm supposed to be white? I mean, I'm sick of it all.
I get a kick out of people when I'd go to these forums where we talk, and most of the time it's liberals and Democrats, and I thought, do you folks really believe me as a policeman? I holstered my gun up to see how many black men I could shoot in a night. Are you kidding me?
I'm telling you. But the hypocrisy as far as race goes is so big we can't even see it. Dave, I was in Atlanta, Georgia on June the 20th on my horse, downtown Atlanta, and that will go down in history as the most non-police day in Atlanta, Georgia's history. It was right after an officer-involved shooting.
Oh.
There was protests everywhere. June 19th was the day before, and there was a lot of friction in the streets. I rode my horse into downtown Atlanta, and there was gangs of Black Panthers in full tactical gear in their black uniforms, and they were roaming the streets, and they were supposed to be the police on this day.
Whoa.
I rode up to a group of men. There was probably 300 men, and they were dressed in purple robes, and they all looked like they could have been NFL football players, big old athletic men, and they called themselves the Black Israelites. If you're not familiar with the Black Israelites, you should Google them and see more of what's at their center. They're very dangerous, radicalized group of religious men that will use itty-bitsy pieces of scripture and try to come up with this racist doctrine that blacks are supreme and whites are going to once again be their slaves one day. But whenever I was sitting on my street, on my horse, listening to these men, the leader of this group said, "White people are less than spit coming out of your mouths." And whenever he said that, about 2/3 of these men spit on the ground and just glared right back up at me when I was on my horse. And it's racism. There's no place for that in America, you know. What if that would have been a white man with 300 white men out there in front of him in capes, and he would have been saying that? The whole country would have been in an uproar, and those men would have been ostracized and dealt with the way they should be. Any races should be.
Certainly.
But since these men were black out there, they just get a free pass to say anything that they want to say, and they're almost celebrated for saying it. And I'm like, justice has to be blind. We have to call racism what it is. I don't care. Racism is no respecter of person. You can be a black racist, a white racist, a Hispanic racist, and an Asian racist. But racism, and we need to identify it and deal with it in all those facets.
Absolutely.
You know, so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go off on that tangent, but I haven't really spoke that publicly about that. You know, I mean, another thing and it was just after I had this experience, is whenever I noticed all of the black NFL football players were kneeling, all of them were kneeling at our flag, and then they started talking about playing a black national anthem at all of our football games. And I thought, you want to play something as racist as a national anthem that's only going to recognize people by the color of their skin?
Silly.
It's the most racist thing thought you could even entertain. If they were wanting to play a white national anthem, do you think that you and I or anybody else would put up with that? So
I would never even consider such a thing.
So in response to that, I said, you know what? If they want to play a black national anthem, maybe they should go back to Africa and do it and play it over in Africa where everybody's black, because this is America. We're mixed here. We're ethnically diverse. But then whenever I say that, now I'm the racist because I said a statement like that. Well, look, you know, I mean, I'm standing up against racism. They don't understand it.
I got in trouble for the same thing. And when we come back from break, I'll tell you about how I got in trouble for saying the exact same thing. We'll be back, folks, just after a short break. Hi Hi folks, welcome back to We the People. I'm Dave Gallus, and my special guest is a real cowboy, a real hero, Couy Giffin, Cowboys for Trump. Couy,
thanks again.
We were talking about how racism is really overblown here. It's actually tearing our country apart.
It is.
You were saying how you got in trouble about talking, say, hey, look, if a black person is not happy in the U.S.,
Yes.
you could fund for them to go back to Africa.
Sure.
And I think you said that you would exchange them for somebody in Africa, a black person that wants to come to the U.S. and give it a shot. That's a great idea.
I mean, whenever you're in politics, or just we're always problem solving. Any human being should always be looking for a fix or an answer to a solution to a problem, if it's in your home or if it's in politics, wherever. But I've thought about a lot about that, and I thought, I don't know what it's like to be a black man in America today. I mean, I can't make that statement. And if a black man in America today really felt like he had been taken from his home country unjustly through generations, and that's really his home country, and that's where all his people are, I could understand how somebody that has that heart might want to go back to Africa. And if he feels like he was brought from Africa unjustly, then I would think, let's think about some type of a reparation settlement. Let's whatever that figure would be, monetarily figure, and let's allow him to go back to Africa. And with that investment, he could make a good investment there. He could live there. Sure. And to prove that we're not racist, we could exchange his citizenship for somebody from Africa that wants to come here to America to live, and we could have an exchange program.
You hear that, folks?
Because there's many people in Africa right now that would love to come to America, and if LeBron James thinks that he can get a better job playing basketball in Africa, go on back to Africa, LeBron. Nobody's keeping you here.
These people, to me, they have a public forum, so they speak out.
Yeah.
And they really don't know what they're talking about. They haven't been there. I have a little semblance of what it's like being a black person, because when I was a Philly policeman, I was a 19-year-old white kid in a black ghetto. It's like I was not loved when I was walking down the street.
And
so
like we said in your first segment, racism is no respecter of color.
No,
it comes in all shapes, sizes, and colors. And a lot of these white folks that are living in these big cities and their kids are going to some of these public schools that are inside those inner cities, and they're little old scrawny little white frail kid walking into a classroom full of a bunch of kids, of people of color, whatever you want to say, that have been taught that kid hates them.
Oh, God help
then
that
you know
child.
what's going to happen to that little old precious kid? He's going to get brutalized just because he's white. He doesn't have anything to do. I refuse to allow my child to be raised in a country where he feels guilty just because he's white.
It's ridiculous.
He had nothing to do with slavery. I had nothing to do with slavery. My dad didn't. My granddad didn't have anything to do with slavery. We will all say that it's wrong.
Right. But have we gotten anywhere since then? Have we done anything?
No, it's because they want to just keep diving in the dumpster, brother. They're dumpster divers, and they want to look at all the injustices from the past, and the liberals are so focused on the past that they can never see to the future. If you're looking behind you, you'll never see ahead.
I think the majority of Democrats, liberals, really believe that they want the social end of socialism. But what they don't realize is that the higher-ups, the puppeteers, the ones that are pulling the strings, are the ones that are separating us. They're pushing us apart, and they're using these people. Sometimes I call them useful idiots. No disparaging against my Democratic friends, but wake up, folks. I mean, don't you see what's going on?
In regards to the Democrat Party, I'm not talking about the baby-killing, gun-grabbing Nazis that are speaking for the Democrats in our country today, like Michelle Grisham and like Jeff Steinborn and others. I'm talking about this old school Democrat Party.
Right.
The old school Democrats. The old school Democrat Party, in my opinion, was the perfect party in a perfect world. If we would have had a world that was not manipulated and people not taking advantage of programs and systems, if we had a perfect world, the Democrat Party would have been the perfect party, because it was just a party wanting to help people. And that's what we should want to do, but it's been hijacked, Yeah.
We had 2 senators, Mary Kay Papen and John Arthur Smith, in our state.
And we saw what
are
happened
good
to them,
people.
I know.
They primaried them out. Their own party took them out because they were too moderate.
I know they did.
And so you really think we're ever going to get anything done across the aisle?
You know,
I don't think so.
I think that what we really, and it's funny, I haven't had the chance to speak on this publicly, and I've had a little bit of reservations, but you talk about the aisle or the divide or the dam between the two parties. Well, that's exactly what politicians want to do. They want to create divides. Why? Because all of them are bar-certified attorneys, and all attorneys do is flourish off of a fight. So they have to have a fight. So they create these divides. So you have to have your attorneys represent you, which are all of our Jeff Steinborn, Mark Moores. I don't know if Mark is, but he acts like one. All of them, Brian Egoff, they're all attorneys, you know.
Right.
But I think what we need to do is try to breach the dam.
Sure.
We're having all these Democrats come over to the Republican Party as rhinos. Why don't we have some dinos? Why don't we have some Democrats in name only? And why don't we start joining the Democrat Party and take their party over?
Well,
Or not take their party over. To the Democrats, we need a two-party system. We need a healthy two-party system. And that's the last message that I want to put out, is that we would ever try to take their party over. But what we do need is we need to help them clean their party up, because their party's been hijacked by the George Soros, the deep state Democrats. Why does Michelle Grisham pick the Secretary of Education out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania? You know, and not that I'm saying anything about his color, but he particularly has to be black. And who's to say that he's not involved with all this Black Lives Matters movement from back there?
Sure.
Why we can't find an educator in the state of New Mexico that would be competent enough to run our own state system? I think we have great educators in New Mexico, many people that are competent in New Mexico, and we don't need to bring somebody from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in to be the head of our education department. We've got competent people right here in New Mexico that can do that.
Absolutely. Well, I could name 5 people off the top of my head that would be good leaders of the education in New Mexico.
Absolutely.
Now, I hear you. Now, I know you got in trouble for making a statement, and I've gotten in trouble for, well, you're human. So I know you were saying something about a dead Democrat.
Oh yeah,
it's
and
like,
I'm so glad you brought that up.
I had to. I'm sorry.
I'm glad you did.
Okay.
I'm glad you did. And as we spoke earlier, when you gave me the courtesy of mentioning that you were going to bring it up before the interview, I appreciate you wanting to talk about it, because I want to talk about it as well.
Good.
The environment in which I said that statement, that was at a Sunday morning church service. Okay.
Oh, geez, all right.
It was a Sunday morning church service. It wasn't at the bar with a bunch of Proud Boys and Oath Keepers and people that are, you know, ready to fight.
Yeah.
I said that to a bunch of little old church ladies in Tennessee, New Mexico, and the reason why I said it was because I was talking about the upcoming election. I was talking about the need for winning every seat, the Republicans.
Yep.
And I was looking at it in regards to like a competition. It's like a football game or a basketball game. And how many times in that jest do you say, I hope we kill the Cowboys this weekend. I hope we annihilate the Cowboys. Sure. The only good Dallas Cowboy is a dead Dallas Cowboy, you know?
Yeah.
That was the jest that was said in. And I said, as soon as I said that statement, Dave, I said, now I don't mean that at all in the physical sense. I'm only speaking politically. I can already see how the left is going to try to use this to make me look like a violent person. And what do? Not only the left, but my own party. Not own Republicans started. You know, those are the likes of Yvette Harrell, who I stood by so strongly in her primary. I introduced Yvette at the state convention. Yeah. Every time I turned around, I was bumping into Yvette, and then I said a statement like that, and I see in the U.S. News and World Report, Harrell campaign distances themselves from Couy Giffin. And I thought, you know, Yvette couldn't even have the courtesy of calling me up on the telephone and told me, hey, you know, I might have to kind of, I mean, That's what friends do. They don't
Yeah.
just go side with the Democrats in the U.S. News and World Report and then leave you just to get completely annihilated. I don't mean to take a shot at Yvette, and I'm still very thankful that we have Yvette in that office, because Yvette will fight for our border. She will fight to defend life. She will fight for our individual rights and freedoms and liberties. And I appreciate all of that about Yvette. But I just say it to say that we can become weak in our party and not even realize it, and we can really hurt each other if we don't stick together. That's why Democrats are so successful.
I know.
They'll have a known pedophile in their mix, and they'll be standing and they'll let him in.
I know. They come up with excuses. Couy, this half hour has gone so quick.
It's already over. Come on now. Come on, man.
We haven't.
Really?
But you know what? I would like to do part 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, folks, listen. Stay tuned, because the following week, Couy's going to be on, and we're going to have part 2 of this conversation. So hang in there, and it'll be Couy 2 next week. See you then.